Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
I'm sitting here with my good friend Bryant, hey Connected Life peeps, and I just watched him murder a wasp.
We got 3 minutes into the podcast and this wasp starts attacking me and I had to spray it with off to kill it. I hate wasps. They hurt so much.
Oh, yeah, they're so painful.
Yeah.
Which we're going to talk about pain and suffering today. I think there's necessary suffering and unnecessary suffering that we create for ourselves, and there's a difference between the two. But
yeah.
I think we might get into a little bit about that. But where we're at, we're in the great outdoors right now.
Yep.
And this brings back so much nostalgia. There was some podcast episodes that I did back in the day when I did the Liberation Project where we went out in the outdoors. And my soul felt so alive, like getting out of a podcast room and just shooting an episode. But we were sitting here next to a fire, and that fire is next to a beautiful river. And speaking of a beautiful river, now this river right now, we're up here in Wyoming, in a valley in Wyoming on a men's retreat. And we're going to get into more about that. But we have rallied groups of men the last couple days to go cold plunge in this river. That's probably 39, 40 degrees.
Yeah, it's cold.
It's cold.
It hurts.
And it's universally fun watching guys, especially ones that are doing it for their first time, get in and power through something that they probably would have never done unless they got challenged by other guys to participate in it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to see people do it because it's not fun the first time you do it or the 10th or 12th time you do it. And there's a level of pain you experience in ice bath that's like that it's such a challenge, and it creates such camaraderie with the guys you're doing it with. Like when you're done, you're like, we did that together, and all the dopamine that's released, all of the hormones and everything. And it's cool to see people who are like, we're like, hey, we're going to go jump in the river. And they're like, nah, dude, I'm never going to do that. And then they come out with us and they stay in ice cold water for 5 minutes, to see that accomplishment on their face, that conqueror feeling. It's been kind of cool to see. Different men go through that.
Yeah. It's been fun. So we've been having this cool men's time. So basically, today's my 40th birthday. You guys are listening to this in the future, well past my 40th birthday, a couple weeks past it. But, right before my 40th birthday hit, I got a phone call from Bryant, and Bryant was like, hey, man, you should come down to San Diego at some point. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go down for my birthday this week. And you're like, yeah, not this week because I'm going on a men's retreat. And it just so happens that there ended up being an extra place on the docket for me to get in on it. So all I know about the whole thing is, hey, we're gonna jump in, we're gonna do some fishing, get away. I have no idea what I'm about to get into, and I think that's the same for you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. The pastor called me and was like, hey, I'm taking a group of guys out to the wilderness, and we're gonna do like fly fishing and drink whiskey, have cigars. And so I was thinking it'd be 5 or 6 dudes just roughing it out in the wilderness, maybe in like a little cabin or something. Yeah, I had no idea what it would be like. No, we were shocked when we got here.
No, when we got here, we show up in there's this valley built in the mountains of Wyoming where it's like tucked away. You don't find it unless you purposely know it's there and you're going to it. And it's got a tiny lake in it and stuff. And it's got this lodge. It's this old snowmobile lodge that was probably built in the 70s. Wood log cabins, all of them, log lodge and stuff like that. And you go in, when we get here, we're greeted by 2 women riding on horsebacks, waving the Wyoming state flag and the American flag. And then we show up and there's a whole bunch of guys already there and they're cheering for all of us. And there's like basically a parade of us in Suburbans. There are way more guys than I imagined coming on the trip.
Yeah, there's like 4 Suburbans filled with dudes. they kind of transported us here like celebrities. We get here and all the staff is just like cheering. There's like music happening and there's girls riding horses in the background, waving flags. It was a sight to behold. I
was like, what did I get into? I don't understand.
Yeah, I was like, where are we? Like, what happened?
Yeah. And then we go inside and like everything, like first off, this cabin is so cool. It's got its own bar. It's got these eating areas. It's old school tables. They've got places set up to play poker and checkers and chess and pool. And
they have every game you'd want.
Yeah.
Like skee ball, ping pong, darts. They have massage lounge, a gym, pool table, poker table, bar, eating. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and nothing's like super like fancy, like brand new. It's like all old
rustic.
School. It's rustic, and it feels like a man camp.
Yeah,
that's
they have a humidifier filled with cigars.
Oh yeah,
just filled with like all the cigars you'd want.
Oh, amazing cigars.
Yeah,
and so they're like, hey, while you're on this trip, we're here to serve you. Whatever you want, you just ask us. And I was like, I'm not used to that. And everyone here is like at some level of leadership capacity for the most part.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like this idea of like, hey, we want to take care of you leaders. And I was like, what? Yeah. Yes, I'd like another cigar, please.
I told, who was I talking to? Michael. And dude, I had moments of like, I don't even like using the word PTSD because that's a pretty extreme term to use, but these flashback moments of panic and anxiety, because maybe the last 10 or 15 retreats I've personally been on have been with my company, where I am responsible and I feel responsible for the people, for the stuff, what's happening, and feeling responsible for like, oh, well, after dinner, I got to talk, or after dinner, I got to speak. And so I'm not even enjoying dinner because I don't like public speaking. And I know I'm gonna have to speak in front of 100 employees afterwards and their wives. And all this, literally just not being able to be settled at a retreat. And so there's been moments here where I'm like enjoying my time, and then I'm like, oh shit, I gotta speak at dinner. And I'm like, oh wait, no, I literally get to just come here and not worry about a thing, and like they take care of us. Dude, that's been pretty just healing in itself, just being around them and how they've been serving us.
That was so impactful for me right off the get-go. And they're like, when we wanted to come over and even do the podcast, they were like, oh, let's drive you over there. You want us to start a fire? We'll start a fire for you. We're like, what is happening? It's so cool. But one of the things that I love, we were kind of chatting about how historically men's retreats within the institution of religion are often, what are they? Terrible.
Kind of cheesy.
They're not super authentic.
Yes.
But we get here, and one of the things I'd said to you the other night when the guy who runs the camp was talking, I was like, I think it's my spirit animal.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's just cussing up a storm and then talking about like the power of God and blah, blah, blah. He's being a dude, got a cigar in his hand. He's just being him, not being pretentious, and loving guys and facilitating really vulnerable conversations. I think most guys had no idea. They thought they were getting away to have fun, and then now they're orchestrating like, let's talk about what's the 600-pound gorilla on your chest. Go.
Yeah.
Some of the guys, it was funny because they're like, maybe my kids are having some problems.
Yeah.
And they weren't actually connecting fully with their pain. And he's like, oh yeah, thanks for sharing. All right, what's the real 600-pound gorilla?
Yeah.
But it's been really cool watching guys bring their walls down.
Yeah.
And begin to feel and express themselves, which is totally my jam. I love that. And it's a great surprise. I love that they had no idea that that's what they're getting into.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny too, because I don't think a lot of them are used to these types of conversations. And I want to say this, but with regard to knowing that you don't need alcohol to feel your emotions, but I think it's a funny setup to see some of these guys are sipping some whiskey and having a cigar, and then it's like, now we're gonna get emotional, and they're like, okay, I'm ready. It's like it's almost like a nice little intro to let's start feeling your pain and talking about it. And it's really cool to see these big men turn into teddy bears as they're talking about what's going on in their world and their life and feeling understood. They don't get to feel understood often because they're leaders. They have to have their shit together. They got to portray perfection, and they have to act like they have it all together. And to see them be like, I'm safe, I'm with all these other leaders, and I get to let my walls down and be vulnerable and transparent about what I'm going through. Like, man, if this model of leadership, if this type of leadership was modeled to me when I was younger, it would have saved me so much pain, shame, and hiding, because I wouldn't have felt like, because I was raised, if you're bad, you have to hide it because nobody else is.
Yeah.
If you're struggling with something like porn, you're a pervert and you better keep that to yourself, and only open up at youth camp once a year whenever the other kids are, and then have a come to Jesus moment. But man, if you jerk off to porn after that, like or drinking or whatever it is, but to hear these men talk about what they're going through and saying like, I'm struggling with my faith right now. I'm struggling with my identity in the institution. I'm struggling with my marriage or this, that, and the other, and being like having these men rally around each other to process through. I mean, like it's so powerful, and it's felt the very opposite of just a cheesy men's group,
Yeah, it's guys getting very real, and the tone is something that. It's a tone that we set with the Liberation Project when we had stuff where it's just like, hey, we're not performing here. We're not trying to use all the polite, pleasant words. Just be messy and say the authentic shit that's going on inside of your world. And so guys are just like, blah, yeah, I'm angry. I'm sad about this. I feel so hurt by this. So I think that that's been really beautiful. I think a lot of it's been interesting because there's a lot of conversation, I think, around people suffering that they don't really open up about. Like, I'm really suffering inside. And I think that there is something also at the same time where a lot of guys aren't willing to talk about their pain inside of stuff because they don't want to have to face the suffering that's going on inside of them. Yeah.
Which in return causes and induces more suffering, and there's no end to it.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a guy the other day that was kind of talking about some of his journey of being a peacekeeper versus a peacemaker. One of the things I challenged him on is I was like, your peacekeepers aren't really authentic. They're just kind of doing what they need to keep the illusion of peace going. Yeah. And oftentimes peacekeepers are avoiding pain, having to feel pain. But in their process of peacekeeping, which is not trying to stir the pot or create any conflict, they end up creating more suffering for themselves. Whereas peacemakers, they actually deliberately have hard conversations that feel like it's disturbing the illusion of peace that everyone has. But what they actually end up getting is to a place where suffering is healed and dealt with inside of it. And I think that we as human beings, we're constantly trying to avoid suffering. And somebody told me this the other day. They're talking about bison, the difference between cows and bison. Cows, when there's a storm, will run away from the storm. And so what happens is the storm will keep chasing them.
This is such a good analogy. I've never heard this before. I'm totally stealing this from my podcast someday.
So the storm follows them, and once it gets over them, they're still running with the storm. So they're stuck infinitely longer inside of the storm because they're trying to outrun the thing that's overtaken them. Whereas bison are badass and smart. Bison turn and they look at storms and they'll run head first into any crazy storm.
Let's go.
Because what happens is they hit it and they pass through it because that storm is going to go past them and they're going to move through it. And they're just going to head through it way faster.
Wow.
It's going to be way less torturous if they just face it head on. And again, we as human beings, we operate more as cows than we do bison.
100%.
Oh my God, that fire's kicking some smoke in our faces pretty hard.
It's kicking my ass.
Yeah, do we need to move?
Nope, that's why you said that it changed.
Okay. Anyways, so I think that, with that said, I think some of the conversation that we wanted to talk about today was the process of suffering.
Yeah.
in the value of suffering and the value of facing suffering head on. I think that, Bryant's been on the podcast in the past, and you talked about being, going to rehab.
Yep.
And overall just trying to reconnect with your heart. And something that I watched, in your journey was there was a lot of running from any sense of suffering. But I'm sure you would say that it perpetuated just longer term suffering. You were kind of a cow.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was a little cow running away from it. It's like, why am I trapped in this so much longer? Absolutely.
But in this last year, you've really been in the process of embracing suffering and becoming a bison, so to say. Did you want to share a little bit about what your journey's been?
Dude, I'd like to preface this with this year, 2022, I have been more happy, alive, connected, energetic, healthy than I've been in the last 7-8 years of my adult life.
Yeah.
And it didn't come from what I thought it would come from. It didn't come from the success or the money or any awards or this, that, and the other. It literally came from, and it's been coming from, I say that because I'm still on the journey, and I don't want to say anything that's like, I've made it, I've processed through all my pain. Nope, I still got a lot of daddy wounds I gotta go through and a lot of other stuff I gotta go through. But what I've noticed is relational pain. I had a pretty painful breakup that happened, and then it was right after the breakup, that's when I went to rehab to go work through the pain and work through addiction and come back alive. And it was right after the rehab, it was so painful that, we ended up getting back together for a short stint for 7 to 10 days. And then we were like, this is not good. We need to, and so we re-broke up, and then it was great. Now I get to start basically what it felt like is starting over on this pain journey. And it was and I'm not, and there was a little bit of just resisting it and fighting it, or maybe I'll get my needs met over here, or maybe I'll do this. And I just had this encounter with God where he's like, look, this is your trajectory. This is where you're heading. And I think he even blessed me with showing me some different individuals who are further ahead in their lives, who I was able to see their pain and their suffering and what they were going through, making similar choices to what I was making. And it was you fully have permission to continue down this path, and I'm going to be with you, but you have a lot more pain coming if this is the route you take. Or you can embrace the pain now, and we can start working through it. We can start learning to come alive. And so it felt like an invitation, and it didn't feel like judgment or shame or condemnation. And so, I was I'm going to learn in this season how to embrace suffering and pain. And that's kind of been the journey I've been on this year. And there's been a lot of practical ways that he's showed me from suffering. And if you listen to my podcast or follow me on Instagram, I like to get in freezing cold water. You like freezing cold water.
I sure do.
And what's crazy about just freezing cold water, and freezing cold water is not going to fix everything in your life. It's not going to take away all your depression, anxiety. But what I love about freezing cold water is it absolutely sucks, but it's so good for you.
Yeah.
And you don't accidentally get into cold water and stay in it. No. You have to choose to stay in freezing cold water. And when you do stay in freezing cold water, 99.99% of the people I have taken on this journey of getting in freezing cold water that you've been in freezing cold water with, when they get out, they're like, I feel alive. I feel stronger. I feel like my blood flow through my body feels better. My dopamine is increased. My hormones are being released. But it's excruciating in the moment. And so your brain actually can't differentiate between emotional and physical stress or pain. It's kind of crazy how our brains are wired. And a lot of what they teach with Wim Hof or ice bathing is if you can get into ice water and teach yourself to be present, calm, and there in the moment while you're experiencing physical torment, your brain starts to wire the way you go through emotional pain and emotional suffering. And what's crazy about doing ice bath over and over is you're like, man, I really don't want to do this. Most of the time before I get in ice water, I'm like, I don't want to do this.
That's my first thought as I'm diving in. I don't want to. Okay.
You stick your foot in and you're like, shit, I really don't want to do this. And then you go in and then you're like, I'm in it. This is painful, but I got this. And every time I do it, it becomes more and more evident that like I can do this, and not only am I doing this, I'm enjoying this pain because I know what's on the other side of this pain. And so like during a breakup, when you're sitting in a moment and you feel lonely and you feel like you have these needs, or you feel like, oh man, I really want to connect back with this person, I miss what this used to be. It's like, this is pain, I'm gonna sit through it, and I know there's breakthrough and beauty on the other side. Versus what I see a lot of guys doing, or what I used to do, is grab a bottle of tequila, as grab your phone and look at porn, or call a side chick on Instagram and then have a moment of connection there. Or we have all of these ways to run away from the storm instead of, charging after it and saying, this is gonna suck, but what's on the other side is very beautiful. So,
yeah. Come on. What's funny is I know all too well Bryant's propensity to running away from pain, because I spent enough time in my office where I'm like, dude,
you know nothing. You know nothing.
Get pain you're trying to avoid. No, I don't. No, I don't. I was talking to somebody too today about their relationship with denial. Like oftentimes our first step to facing pain and dealing with the suffering that we have is acknowledging that a storm exists. So a lot of people have such a deep friendship with denial. To save them from it, they're like, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. No, that storm is headed your direction, whether you believe that storm is there headed your direction or not. I was laughing at some of the guys in a non-mocking way. Yeah. But I was just giggling where they're like, nah, man, everything's okay. And I'm like, nah, man, no, it's not. Yeah. That thing is going to overtake you, whether you get away from it for another 10 years or another 5 years. It's going to grab you. Yeah. It's going to overtake you at some point. And the question becomes, do I want to do it now? And, it's kind of like the difference between climbing a hill or climbing a mountain. Do I want to climb a hill that I perceive as a mountain, or do I want to climb a mountain that is a mountain? Yeah. Because like if I perpetuate the running away from something long enough, it grows from a hill to a mountain. The very thing you're scared of facing, that you're scared, like there's a mountain here, I don't want to have to face it. It actually ends up becoming the mountain. Yeah. But like what you said, even when we talk about ice plunging, if you just get in it and sit down in the middle of the suffering and say, yes, I choose to embrace this, even though this isn't fun. You realize 2.5, 3 minutes in, certain parts of you adjust. Yep. Your body, adjusts to the situation. You settle yourself down. You're like, I don't want to spend the rest of my life sitting in this river. But I mean, when you do it, all of a sudden you go, oh, 5 minutes isn't so bad. I guess I'll do maybe another extra 1 or 2 minutes. And then if you're collectively within a community who is all willing to jump into this suffering place, you become almost competitive because you feel the camaraderie of, I'm not in this river alone. Yep. And you get personality types like Justin and Bryant who are like, I'm not getting out before you get out.
I know everyone else is out of the ice bath and me and Justin are looking at each other. I'm like, Justin, I'll die in here. I'm going to die before I get out and let you beat me. And then we had to come to an agreement. Okay, at the 10-minute mark, we both stand up.
And what's funny is, we the other day we went in for 10 minutes. And then today we were like, hey, we're just going to agree to go in for 5. And then we'll see where that goes. All right, 7. All right, we made it to 10. Let's go one step further to 11. You know what? We beat our personal best here today at 11. Let's make it 12. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But what happens is that when you have a collective community of people that start getting breakthrough and they see that like, oh, I didn't have to jump up out of this situation. I am going to be okay. There's almost like this healthy competition of like, no, we got this together. Yeah. And you start connecting with your strength. Like I say this to people after I went through my panic attack season. We are incredibly fragile as human beings, and we are incredibly powerful all at the same time. There's this beautiful duality that there is something very weak about humanity in a good way, not a bad way. Like, oh yeah, like life could really happen and really hurt you. And there's an endurance, a grit that's wired into us that if we will actually put ourselves in a process and be present with something long enough, like suffering long enough, we realize like, I am not going to easily be broken. I actually have great strength inside of me.
Yeah.
And I think that when you allow yourself to be part of a culture that does that, you get inspired going, actually, we all have grit. We are all capable.
Yeah, and I think that what you said is crucial. It is being part of a community, because it's impossible to go. I don't say it's impossible. It's very hard to go through that journey alone. And for me, and I'm trying to be careful with how I word this, because I don't want to like shit on people, because like, guys, I feel like I was stuck in this for years and years, and I feel like God was with me the whole time, and I was in excruciating pain. But it took a while for me to accept the invitation to go through the pain. But when I was, it's kind of like observing your culture, observing your people, and saying, like, how much pain are they allowing themselves to go through? How much emotional health are they going after? How do they handle hard times? And even as men, it's more acceptable to be like, I had a hard day, I need a beer. I had a hard day, I'm gonna go do this. Oh, it was rough, man, I really need it. And then you hear, oh, well, so what you're saying is you're going through pain, so let's numb it. So what you're doing is you're pushing it down, saying, I can't handle you right now. Please come back later, more frequently, and more powerful. We don't we subconscious. This is subconscious. We don't know we're saying this, but that's what we're telling pain. I can't deal with you now. Come back later and more powerfully.
That's so true.
But instead, when you get that, oh man, I need a beer right now. That's like, oh no, actually, this is an invitation to sit in cold water for a minute and deal with it and say goodbye to you. And it may come back, but it's going to come back weaker. And you're going to become more resilient to the pain. And for me now, like, I'll be with my friends and someone will say something that triggers something, and I'll be able to go, I need a minute. And I'm able to like sit with myself and go, okay, this hurts. Why does it hurt? Oh, because it reminds me of this thing. Okay, why does that hurt? Oh, I miss this person. Yeah, this really sucks. And maybe I'll journal about it. This is how I feel. Why is this a blessing that I actually am in this season? And it's like I'm processing through it, and then it's like a baby who cries because they're, in pain, but then they stop crying almost immediately. You know what I'm saying? They cry for like 60 seconds and then they're done crying. They forget about why they were even sad. Totally. I started to feel that way, where it's like I'm quickly processing, and then the community around me is quickly processing. And instead of turning to a substance or a behavior or an action to go like, oh, I'm just getting through it. I had a rough one, I'm going to do this. It's like, oh no, like this is an opportunity to embrace it. And I'm telling you, being and surrounding myself with people who are going through that journey intentionally, it makes it rather hard to hang out with people who aren't being intentional about going after their pain. Right. Because it's hard to watch them go through this self-destructive process. It's hard to even have them encourage you to try numbing your pain. And so, I'd say that what's crucial, what you said about, surrounding yourself with a culture of people who are going after that.
I was thinking about this when you were saying that suffering is an invitation. I just kind of thought of this. I don't know if it's right, but suffering is an invitation to experiencing a lifestyle of resilience.
Yeah.
There's an invitation there that you can actually create a lifestyle of resilience. And when you have a group of people who are willing to engage it, all of a sudden there's this sense of courage that's birthed, and you start realizing we are resilient. Yeah. We have gone to hell and back together. We've gone to hell and back inside of our own souls, and all of a sudden there's a confidence that overtakes you. And resilience to me is something that we as a culture are unbelievably lacking as a whole, especially America.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's just lost our relationship as a whole with resilience. And all of a sudden we want to create all these fucking safe spaces where you don't have to feel any pain. There are no problems. You don't have to be challenged with anything. It's about creating a lifestyle of comfort. True comfort to me is when you are able to sit down in the freezing cold water and come to a place of regulated peace within yourself. Yeah. That is comforting, because you know that you are strong, you are powerful, you are capable, and you can face really tough stuff. That is true comfort to me. Resilience is comfort.
Yeah. And I mean, it's even biblical. Consider it pure joy when you face trials and temptations and suffering. Like, as it builds character, it builds, long suffering. And it's a biblical thing, but it's one of those things that that, yeah, like in America, we have the antidote for everything. We have the fix for every problem. And we're constantly chasing comfort. We're constantly chasing numbness. We're running away from our pain. And I'm like, and dude, and that was actually kind of crazy. This season of life, I am more consistent going to the gym than I've ever been in my entire life.
Yeah.
And what's changed is I have body goals, right? I want a six pack. I want to look so sexy when I take my shirt off. Like I'm not going to deny and be like, I'm doing it just for health purposes. Like, no, I actually have goals that I want with my body.
I want to look bang city.
Yeah, I want to look bang city. Yeah, I'm single. I'm still trying to look sexy to find my wife. But no, but it's funny because recently when I've been going to the gym and I pull up to I have this trainer in San Diego, and I pull up to the gym and Holy Spirit goes, what's the goal of this hour? And I go, to suffer. And people go, well, that's a punishment mentality. You shouldn't have that at mind. So you go, no, it's not punishment. It's building resilience. Because I know I'm going to go into this gym and I'm not thinking about, well, how is this exercise shaping my abs? How am I getting bigger biceps with this? No, I shut that part off and say, I'm going to do whatever he tells me to do. And while I'm doing it, I'm going to say, can I push myself any further to embrace this suffering a little bit more? Because I'm becoming more and more resilient to this type of training. And what that's done for me is it's made me look forward to the gym more, because it's training for resilience versus I'm trying to become lovable and more acceptable because of the way my body looks. And the same thing when we go to the ice bath, the same thing when we go to the sauna, the same thing when I go to counseling. It's like, no, this is a moment to build resilience. This is a moment to embrace suffering so I become stronger. Not because I'm trying to punish myself because I'm bad, but because I know the man that God's put inside of me and I'm trying to chisel him out. So I 100% agree with what you're saying about the resilience, how suffering builds resilience,
That's so good. I was thinking about people will sit back and have these fantastical thoughts about what they want to do one day with their life or what they want to be. Like, I want to do that. I want to create that. And I want to be that. And I'm always like, do you understand what it takes to get to that?
Yeah.
The people that are there have found areas of suffering that they have been willing to commit to facing head on and moving straight through. And they have built a sense of resilience. It's like, I've had people talk to me about like, one day I want to be so famous. I want to be famous around the world. I want everyone to know my name. And I was like, dude, you'd be crushed in a second. Yeah. You can't even sit and like accept the fact that you have some issues with your mom right now.
What's worth following you for? What's worth, what you want to be an influencer, but how are you influencing people? Like, what do you...
And you don't know the suffering that comes with influencers. Influencers are like living punching bags, verbal punching bags where everyone has a judgment about them. Yeah. Everyone wants to tear down what they're doing. People are out to like take from them all kinds of stuff. There are wars that are blazing all around them. And the ones that do it really successfully, they have built resilience because they have been learning to face really tough stuff. And so to people who have come to me and been like, well, how do I achieve my dreams and become like this thing that I'm wanting? I'm like, well, learn how to face suffering really well until you're not easily broken by the experience. Oh, I don't think I like that idea. That sounds stupid. Well, keep living your small life. Like, I don't mean that in a condemning way. I'm like, just accept I will live a small life. Yeah. I had one of my financial guys I was talking to a couple months ago, maybe 8 months ago or something like that. And I sat down with him and I said, I want a level of money like that I can finance X, Y, and Z for people's lives. Like, and he's like, oh, so you want, fuck you money. And he said, tell me about your risk taking. And he started giving me examples of like, does this feel too risky? Would you jump and do this? Would you jump and do that? By the end of it, he said, oh, like you have a level of risk. You are a risk taker in areas, but you don't have fuck you money risk taking built into you. He's like, you're probably going to be better off accepting that this is the level you'll be at. And I didn't feel condemned. I didn't feel shamed. I was like, oh, challenge accepted, buddy. Yeah.
Dude, look at these deer. These deer just ran through our camp right now. That's crazy.
They look tasty.
Yeah, they did.
I need to kill them and eat them on this fire. But it was this thing where I had to say, okay, am I going to accept that my life is going to peak at this level based on these lack of taking risk in these areas? Or am I going to choose to face that fear inside of my soul and accept it as an invitation? So when someone's even listened to us say this, like, is there a part of your life where you're living really small and you either decide to accept like, oh, if I'm not willing to risk any more than what I am, this is what my life is. Am I willing to, and it doesn't mean it's bad, but
yeah, no shame in it.
No shame in it, but okay, this is my life. And where I'm at right now, I consider it really small. Okay, if you can, you based on your judgment over your life, if you consider that small living and you can accept that, then fine, we're done with it. But if you hear this and you get offended at the idea of you're living a small life and you're just trying to get out of it by creating like, well, maybe one day it'll happen. It's just not going to happen that way. It's going to come through deciding what are the fears that I have been unwilling to face. Because I said, backing up to earlier time in my life, that smoke's really just killing your face, isn't it?
It's all right.
It's getting good. Yeah, it's
building resilience.
Yep.
Suffering.
At an earlier time in my life, 25 years old, I remember talking to God and I felt this unction and I heard this thought. Fear is the gateway between us and the destiny of who we are created to be. That fear is something that we have to pass through. It's a door. You have to face it and walk right through it if you're going to become who you're truly made to be. Each person has their own individual design. It looks different for every single person. And for me, I was like, shit, my life is small compared to my design.
Yeah.
And I think that like, I can't sit and judge whose life is small and not small. I can't do that. Only each of us can judge, am I living small or, you know, or am I actually living up to the potential of my design? And part of how we find out if we're living small is to ask the question, what are the fears inside of me that I am unwilling to face? Is there fears that I've denied that I have? I'm denying to myself that they actually exist. And if I see that there are a lot of fears in my life that I'm not facing, then I'm living a small life.
Yeah.
And for me, I remember saying, God, I am willing to face my greatest fears no matter what it costs me. So I welcome them to take place. And I watched my life start to unravel. Like all the things that I didn't want to happen that I was scared of happening, happened.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that I wasn't so fragile. I actually had a lot of grit and capacity inside of me. The things that did happen weren't as painful as I thought they were going to be. As I just hunkered down and started passing through it. Yeah, there were times it was excruciating. There were times that I wanted to tap out and run, but it wasn't as bad. Like I thought it would utterly destroy me if I did those things.
Yeah.
And it didn't.
Yeah.
You're not going to just be destroyed.
Yeah. You know, when I think, Justin, when I would hear individuals talk about what you're talking about, there would be a piece of me that would just kind of like turn off because it's like, dude, there's no way I can go through that level of pain. Yeah. There's no way I have that type of resilience. And honestly, I don't even know how to begin that journey.
Yeah.
And I think what I really love about the Holy Spirit is he knows what we can and can't go through.
Yeah.
Is that good? Is the wiring good? Okay.
Good.
He knows what we can and can't handle right now. And I'm like, we have this delusion sometimes, or this feeling of, and I feel like sometimes this is the enemy even speaking to us, where it's just like, we have to climb the mountain on day one.
Yeah.
You know, versus like getting on the elliptical or the Stairmaster for 5 minutes and going, yeah, this is just going to burn for a little bit. Yep. But you know, I'm a little stronger than I was yesterday. And then, oh, maybe today I'm going to jump on this. Maybe tomorrow I'm going to hike this. And what's crazy, you know, even with working out, like if you go to the gym and you're like, you're going to run 5 miles on the treadmill, you're going to lift these weights, you're going to do this. You're like, fuck that. I'm not going to do that. But like you get to a certain point where you've been going to the gym long enough to where you're like, man, I can push myself further. Or you get into ice water. You're like, man, 2 minutes was actually a breeze. The first time you go ice bathing, you try to set yourself in for 10 minutes. You're going to get in for 10 seconds and go, there's no fucking way I'm sitting in here for 10 minutes. But you go, no, get in for just 30 seconds. You can do that. How was 30 seconds? Great. Let's try a minute now. Great. How was that? And then after a while, you're like, oh, let's do 12. And I think that's a lot about like processing through pain and going on this journey that you're talking about, where any of you who are listening to this and you're like, man, that sounds tormenting. Yeah, there will be moments of torment as you're going through and uncovering this pain. But when you approach those moments, I believe that you'll actually be able to take it. And I believe that you'll actually be able to experience it and be able to identify where you're at and go, this is good for me. I'm excited for the joy that's on the other side of the suffering. But it it literally looks like getting on a treadmill for 5 minutes. That's more metaphorically, not literally, but I mean with pain. And like, I don't know if you even had some practical ways for people to take those types of baby steps to start processing through that type of stuff.
Oh, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think number one, asking the question, what am I in denial about?
Mm-hmm.
Because so many people say, I'm good. This is just the way life is.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all statements of denial.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're not good.
Yeah.
Your wife and you are fighting. You're drinking a shit ton. You have addictions. You're not, the last time you actually belly laughed was like maybe when you were in high school. You kind of feel numb to stuff. You're not good. And this isn't just the way life is. This is just the way you've chosen to live your life in your journey of fear and stuff. But I think the first thing is to say, I'm not good. You know what? I am not good. There are areas that I am not good in. There are areas that are not okay. There are areas that I am really frustrated with. There are areas that I actually want change in. And I think it's scary to acknowledge that you want change in something, because then again, I don't know how to do that. There's a common phrase that people say when they don't know something is, I don't know, versus I'm going to learn.
Yeah.
I have problems. And right now I don't quite know what to do about them, but I'm about to learn what to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
I am, ideas, concepts, everything that I need is coming to me to help me through this. Right. Like, so to me, once we get past the denial, then we can ask the question. We can express the need. I need help. I need healing. And there's something about, even in my journey with God, every time I was willing to humble myself and say, Dad, I am so broken and I really want to know how to heal this part of my world. I am ready and available to it. He's like, yeah, I was standing at the door knocking, waiting for you to open it up in this area. So happily, and then that's where grace enters in, right? Because it's not about, I have to go fix myself and I have to go find the solutions all on my own to do it. It's about a heart posture of willingness. It says, okay, I'm willing to accept that I'm living a small life and I don't want to live a small life, and I'd like to learn what I need to do. And there's something about learning how to be present with yourself enough and start settling, even if it's just like, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to settle. I'm going to settle away from my phone, away from the TV, away from all the things that distract me. And I'm going to get present with myself long enough for the answers that have been trying to present themselves to me for so long to actually connect with my brain.
Yeah.
Because they're there. They're talking to us. We were talking to a guy here where there was a group of us around him, and, he was basically saying, I'm good. Everything's good. I'm fine. And obviously he's not, and he doesn't feel safe at some level to share about it. And I had zero judgment on it. I was like, I just had so much compassion and love for him, knowing like, it must have been really rough, whatever he's gone through that's got him at this point. But, it's like, there's probably been a lot of prayers that he's prayed that said, God, I want help. But then when help kind of shows up at the door, denial's kind of at the door as well for him.
Yeah.
And he's having to let go of denial and go, okay, it's presenting itself at the door. And he may not have recognized it at the moment, seemingly, but later on we talked to him and he was getting it all.
Yeah.
Like he was recognizing it and he was getting safe enough to open up. But a lot of times we don't recognize that the answers have been knocking on our door daily at us through situations, and we're turning a deaf ear deliberately to them.
I think it takes a level of humility too.
Yeah, it really does.
Because, you say, I want to deal with my pain. I want to, dude, your community, your family, your parents, your siblings, your girlfriend, your wife, your spouse, they're showing you what your pain points are every single day.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and a lot of us are turning a blind, for this person in particular, it was people were hey, these are some things we're seeing, but there was that denial coming up. And part of that could have been some pride, or just I want to seem like I have my stuff together.
Or the feeling of needing to feel safe and not,
totally. Yeah.
A lot of different levels of stuff that happen there. But we oftentimes, I'll even use safety as an example there. A lot of times we will not let the solutions that we need for our pain into our life, because we're so in need of safety that we build all these self-protective barriers around us in order to survive circumstances that feel so difficult. You okay there?
Yeah. I just wanted to get out of the smoke for a quick second because it was making my eyes water.
Yeah, it was spitting in your face.
No, I'm good though. I'm great.
But
Gucci.
Going back to saying, like, we're so concerned with safety.
Yeah.
Because we felt so much pain that we don't want to have anymore, but we have to accept, like, hey, I have the illusion of safety.
Yep. Oh, 100%.
Behind my walls where I have built these barriers in this prison. I think I'm safe because I think I'm not accumulating any more pain. But the reality becomes, when we get down to it, I'm only accumulating more pain. In disconnection from a relationship and disconnection from being known, that pain is only amplifying anyways.
Yeah.
So it's basically, some of what we're saying here is, if you're not willing to participate in suffering deliberately, the suffering of facing what's inside of us and going through things, you're only perpetuating further suffering in your life anyways. You're never going to get away from it.
Yeah.
And the one piece of suffering that I don't want to have, the worst piece of suffering that I think that we could ever have, is when we're laying on our deathbed and we have to accept, I lived a very small life. I lived an entire life running in fear from pain, from suffering, and I never actually fulfilled who I'm designed to be. Like, I never allowed that to emerge.
Yeah.
Because I was busy running. Like, there's tons of horrible losses and sufferings that happen along the way. But to me, it's even worse did I just fucking go through every bit of that and then get nothing out of it and never actually get to emerge out of this cocoon that I've been trapped in the whole time? So was that, and I've actually had conversations with guys that are on their deathbeds going, I think my life was pointless. The suffering was pointless. The pain that I did have that I was avoiding that still happened, it was all pointless.
Jesus.
And that feels like, I can't imagine a worse tragedy than hitting that point.
This isn't an original thought, but the way I'm trying to articulate it might be, just like we have to choose our suffering. I hear a lot of different people, and I forget where I saw this on Instagram. Like, you got to choose your discomfort. Choose the discomfort of, working hard and starting a company, or choose the discomfort of being an employee and being in the rat race your whole life. And it's like, you got to choose your suffering. Like, you either choose to embrace your suffering and go through it, or you choose the consequences of not going through your suffering, which is still just going to be more suffering.
Yeah.
And so it's all a choice of like, where do I want to end up? And honestly, what seems to be the easiest route is typically the route that has the most pain at the end of it.
That smoke is just chasing
you.
Dude,
I'm telling you, man.
No matter where you decide to go.
It's hard to articulate thoughts too, because you're in the middle of a subject, and then all of a sudden you're like,
you're eating smoke.
Eating smoke, yeah. So I think that's helped me even thinking about that. Like, there's going to be a level of suffering that I'm going to experience if I run away from this, or there's going to be a level of suffering that I get through if I
and
go
you're
through
talking necessary versus unnecessary suffering, I think is the way it pops up in my head. Unnecessary suffering is suffering that I amplify because I'm not willing to look head first into something and face it. And so I perpetuate the mountain that I was talking about earlier versus the hill. And then necessary suffering is like, hey, this is humanity. With humanity, there's just pain that comes with it. And there's going to be some hills that I have to climb, and occasionally some mountains that are inside of it. But it's just part of the human experience. And a lot of times I think people do not, what amplifies suffering even more, the unnecessary suffering, is, how do I put this? It's this, not the inability to embrace it. Like the fact that I am saying, oh, that's bad. The fact that I say, I do not want to suffer. That feeling of, I don't want something to happen that inevitably is going to happen. That feels excruciating.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're constantly in disappointment because you create an expectation that you can actually live a life where you don't have suffering, where you don't have pain that exists, where you don't have to feel it. So then when you do feel it, you feel this monster of disappointment that overtakes you. And you're like, I expected I could get out of this. Like how you keep thinking you can get out of this fucking smoke.
You just got a ton of ash blowing on you too. This is crazy. It's starting to sprinkle a little bit too, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, the storm's coming at us. Let's run into it.
Yeah, let's.
But you know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
In the idea of like, once I say I accept that pain exists, I accept that suffering is part of my human experience, I accept that I'm going to have to face fears to fully come alive. All of a sudden, that pain, there's a pain that disappears completely out of that. Where it's like, okay, it didn't hurt when it came because I knew it would come. Yeah. I'm not feeling disappointed that pain is here because I accepted that it's part of my process.
Yeah, it's so good.
And I think that was part of one of the most catalytic part of my choices that I ever made, which was accepting that life has pain. I am going to experience it.
You know what's really infuriating? I don't know how much time we have left, so I don't want to.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
You know, it's kind of infuriating how in the institution of religion, it's almost like, whoa, that was crazy. That was like a fire tornado from our fire pit. And what's actually crazy is the institution of religion, it's almost celebrated to ignore pain.
Yeah.
It's almost, it's celebrated to pretend you don't have pain because the joy of the Lord is your strength, brother. And it's like this idea of, well, if you're in pain, that's because you're not seeing what Christ did for you on the cross. and it's bloody mad is what it is. I don't know why I use the word bloody, but it's bloody mad is what it is. It's bloody mad. It's fucking crazy. No, it's insane. And I'm like, dude, people are suffering an eternal torment because they're dying in their torment and their pain alone because they feel like their pain, their suffering is something they shouldn't be experienced because they have Jesus in their heart. You know? And I'm like, bro, and that's what I really have loved about this retreat that we're on is the way they're like, hey, we all have pain.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Let's get it out in the open. Yeah. And let's deal with it. And so, yeah, I mean, like,
you know what also, can I share this? What I think amplifies suffering so much is the smoke.
I wish this was on video so people could see how well we're articulating thoughts while inhaling like so much shit.
I feel like I'm in a house fire.
Yeah, the fire was a good idea. But
suffering, because we will not acknowledge the pain inside of us, suffering is amplified by like 10x.
Yeah.
Because no one knows you're suffering. Mm-hmm. So there's no one to share your burden, right?
Yeah.
So the sense of being alone and abandoned inside of pain is like it's the ultimate disconnect from love. Like when we are disconnected from love, that is the greatest suffering we can experience.
Yeah. It's hell.
It's hell. It is literal hell when we are disconnected from love. So when we're in pain that we will not share with other people, we have amplified the hell that we're in because it's like, oh, I'm alone and I'm in pain. Yeah. Versus I'm in pain and I'm acknowledging I'm in pain and I have people who are rallied around me and I can feel a connection to love that's going to draw me through the darkest parts of this process. It's going to give me the courage and the bravery and the strength to get to the other side of it. And I'm going to know that I'm going to be okay because other people are going to share their stories of pain and suffering with me as I'm sharing about mine. They're going, oh yeah, me too. Me too. Here's what I went through and here's how I got here. And go, oh, there's another side to this. Oh, there it is. And us sharing opens up the door for us to discover other people's maps.
That vulnerability.
Yeah. You know what? You know what I have to say to this log? This fiery log that is, go away, log.
Good Lord.
Oh, man. That's a little better, maybe.
Maybe. We'll see. I'm glad we're suffering together, as what you were saying.
Yeah, we're suffering together,
you know,
in the middle of it. Anyways, with that said, I think that there's an invitation today that we're talking about to, I think that a lot of the people that listen to Connected Life, they already have participated in this stuff. You're listening, you're here because you want to face pain, you want to deal with stuff. But I think one of the focal words or focal points in all of this is the word resilience.
Yeah.
Because that's really what we're talking about. There is a resilience. There is everything that you need inside of you and around you to get you to where you're meant to go, to where what you're designed to be and designed to do. There is a resilience that is being like built inside of every yes to face a fear, every yes to face a pain.
Mm-hmm.
There is a resilience that is being created step by step, piece by piece. And at some point, like as you continue to allow the resilience to be built inside of you, and you don't just survive through it, but you actually process through all of this stuff, what ends up happening is you find out is that you have the shoulders to bear, like carrying great influence, great opportunities, dreams of your heart that you thought were only for other people suddenly become yours to have. Available, completely available. There's an abundance waiting for you. And part of that abundance begins with the abundance of love, compassion, and care that you need to get through the pain that's going on inside of you. It's there. And so going back to, there is a resilience that you were designed to have, and there's an invitation to experience it right here and now. Anything else you have to say to that?
I mean, that's a great soundbite to end on. I would love to articulate something smart and cool to add to that, but the smoke is in my face. I'm having a hard time thinking. But
it really became our adversary today, didn't it?
It really did. Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. Man, I think maybe one thing I would like to add is, with all this, the amount of love I'm able to experience, the amount of love that I'm able to feel and experience through going on this pain journey. And honestly, like having you and Abby in my life to help show me blind spots and help bring some of this stuff up has been crazy. But dude, like my ability to connect to community from going through this pain has been astronomically different than when I was suppressing my own pain. It wasn't just hurting me, it was hurting my friends, my community, my family. And I would say this is the most valuable journey I've ever been on in my life. And to me, it's not just this is a great addition to your life. This is essential oils. This is a cool fad to get into. It's like, no, this is like the tree of life. Yeah. This is like an equation to happiness and fulfillment and joy. Mm-hmm. That's it.
That's really good. And I will attest to this, to wrap it up in your world. I was talking to you the other night about how, the best expression of you has come in you facing your pain. Mm-hmm. Like when you weren't medicating, like I actually get to know Bryant. There's Shadow Bryant, which is like, that's not really Bryant. That's just like survival Bryant over there.
It's very messy Bryant.
And then there's like Bryant who truly comes out like, oh, here's that fun, adventurous, down to earth, connected guy that suddenly shows up even in the midst of facing difficult stuff because he's actually facing it and not medicating. Mm-hmm. And he's life is birthing out of him.
Yeah.
And so I can attest to that and what that'll do for other people. So all of you joining in today, again, it's my 40th birthday today, and this has been an incredible experience. I'm so thankful for it. I'm so thankful for life that's full of surprises. When Bryant said, hey, you want to just jump and join us? Like, that's one thing that he's brought out of me in life is more and more that part of myself that historically just jumped and would do things and like ignited adventure. And I think that if any of you out there are listening that if you're not a person that initiates like fun, play, adventure, then find somebody who does.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it draws out so much life out of you when you just go and you just like let life happen and get present with it. So with all that said, it's now starting to rain. We're going to wrap this up.
It's pouring now.
If you've gotten impacted by this in any way, shape, or form, rate, review, subscribe, and share. Get the message out there. And if you still haven't given me a birthday gift yet, here's a great birthday gift you get to give to me this week as you listen to this episode. Go to iTunes, give us a 5-star review, and write a review on how you've been impacted by the Connected Life in the last few years. And Bryant, thank you for sharing with us today your heart and being with me. I love getting to spend time with you.
Thanks, Justin. It was fun.
All right.
Cheers.
Peace out.
Woo, it's cold.